Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar on what to look for in an accessibility vendor. Laura already gave an introduction about me, so I'll save everyone some time. Hopefully everyone is being warm, staying warm in the cold weather that we are experiencing here in the US. If you're not, try to get at warm places, people. Today we are going to look at some of the key attributes that are important as you pick a partner for your accessibility journey. So as we go through the rest of the presentation, if I can get this to move, there we go. We'll cover certain attributes that we feel are important as you look for different accessibility vendors. These come from our experiences in different industries with different sizes of engagements. So as we're sharing this information with you, these are all from personal experiences we have gained being in the industry for as long as we have been and talking to different people in the industry. So some of the key attributes that we're going to focus on today are who are the accessibility stakeholders in your organizations as you start looking at accessibility partners. We'll give you a very quick model on how to define accessibility maturity of your organization and show you how that has an impact on which vendor or which partner to pick. We'll talk briefly about what a typical length of engagement is. And then we'll finally wrap it up with some essential qualities. I like to call it as essential qualities for a tasty recipe. So we'll finally sum it up with that, and then we'll open the forum of questions. So let's start with a quick poll. At this point of time, I'm looking for your answers on, who do you think is impacted by accessibility requirements in your organizations? Is it a UX designer? Is it a developer? Is it a QA or your testing team member or a project manager? You should have seen a poll pop up on your screen if you can take next 10 seconds to answer the question. And Laura, is this a multi-select option right now or is this a single
select right now.
Okay. Give everyone about 30 seconds.
Okay, looks like it's slowing down. So right now, about 30% of people think it's developers, 30%, not 30 people. 21% think it's UX, 9% think it's QA, and 36% think it's project management.
How many did you say was the project management?
36.
36.
So almost tied with developers.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for your responses on this. Let's go forward with where we see the stakeholders coming in from. So first of all, UX, 21% of the team members in the poll, well, I saw some updated numbers, it's about 20%. They say that UX is impacted, they are a stakeholder. Studies have pointed out that about 40 to 60% of the accessibility problems can be addressed within this stage, within the user experience design stage, by providing appropriate considerations for accessibility. So definitely a key stakeholder. Think about all the user experiences you're developing. Think about your color combinations. Think about, are you planning to put some images to attract attention? So are they going to be flashy? Do you have any videos that you're going to put up on your screen? So with each of the choice you make there are a set of accessibility considerations that come in. So very key stakeholder. If you address accessibility here, you're off to a flying start. Let's talk about a developer or a programmer. Now, use of appropriate tools or languages or frameworks to apply appropriate semantics is critical. So the UX person did their job. They gave a very accessible experience to start with. It will go nowhere if appropriate semantics is not applied by the developer. Additionally, the developer has a key decision to make and key knowledge on how different platforms will behave by the piece of code that is being put in. With today's nature of business, where more and more work is being done on those, those tiny handheld devices, which we all call cell phones, it's very important for a developer to be aware of how behavior changes between these devices and how it can be addressed using programming. The QA and testing folks, they usually get the brunt of everyone's wrath. And I am no exception to it. I used to be a developer at one point of time, and I hated QA team because they used to open bugs against my name. But reality is if they're not there, we will be delivering an inefficient or non-functional system. And having knowledge of accessibility is critical for your QA team. Um, I would say as critical for as a UX designer. And what's most complicated for a QA person is the WCAG guidelines. They're not black or white. There's a ample amount of gray in there. So they need to be comfortable going through various interpretations of each guideline. Finally, project managers. They're often overlooked. I was very pleasantly surprised when this group answered the question with overwhelming numbers that project managers are impacted. I see with experience a lot of times companies or organizations ignore project managers in having to address accessibility needs. They need to build appropriate accessibility gates in the process, in the project schedule. Make sure accessibility is a part of your project charter. It's being accounted for in budgeting and in the deliverables. So we talked about these four, but is it the only four that are impacted? Time to think about that a little bit more. And I know I threw a trick question in front of you. The answer is many other roles in the organization are impacted by accessibility. Business owners, because at the end of the day, they're trying to get a functional system out of the door very quickly to meet the business needs. Human resources team, anytime a complaint comes in, whether external or internal, HR team gets involved. Customer service team, they are your first line of defense. When a customer calls up and says, hey, I'm not able to access this service, they need to be trained enough to understand whether they're talking to someone who has any sort of disability and how the system allows them to go through the procedures. Your procurement team, your training services, your legal team, at some point of time, all of them are impacted. So you have multiple key stakeholders. And that's where your choice of accessibility partner becomes critical. Our experience suggests that at any given point of time, you don't have the same amount of influence on each of these different teams. There are times when you have a development team which is fully on board with accessibility, but you may have project managers who are not very, who are much more focused on delivering a functional system, not considering accessibility. So you need to be able to find a partner who can help you through all of these different areas, all of these stakeholders, and be able to adapt at different times based on where you're getting the buy-in from. It'll be ideal if you can get buy-in from all the teams at the same time. That's just not reality. Let's talk about how accessibility maturity impacts this decision. So we came up with a framework on different levels of maturity within the organizations uh, based on your accessibility project experience. So I'm defining four different levels here. The beginner level is where you have no to minimal accessibility experience, and you have done no accessibility projects so far, either assessment or fixing of accessibility issues. At this stage, you're looking for someone who can partner with you, give you very quick information on what's wrong when you're doing your first project, but just not stop there. Just don't give me the information about what's wrong with my projects. You need a partner who can give you some strategic level guidance on how you can take this information and really set up yourself to build a project, to build an accessibility program. The next level I define is the rookie level. And I'm from Atlanta. We have Super Bowl coming here, so you'll hear some football references here and there. I apologize for that in advance. So the rookie level, I'm defining that group as the people who have done some research or have heard of accessibility. And notice the switch from accessibility to A11Y. That's on purpose because you've heard and done some research. You probably have done some initial accessibility assessments as well, or you're working on some. So that's the level where you're really trying to go from setting up for success to being the workhorse and get a lot of assessments and try to get some projects in space. Intermediate level. This is where you have done a few accessibility assessments. You're probably starting to think about fixing some of those issues that you found, maybe have done 2 to 5 remediations. And at this point of time, you're also starting to think about how to set up some accessibility training programs. So at this point of time, you're looking for a partner who can help you not only find those issues, but also help your development teams to navigate through the issues that have been found and walk through how to fix them in different frameworks that the teams are using, and also help your teams set up those training programs because they are crucial for long-term success. And finally, the fourth level that we define is the expert level. This is where you have done more than 5 assessments or remediation projects. So you are a pro at this. You may have accessibility already streamlined into your overall web development or application development process, and really defined accessibility training program, or even an onboarding program for your employees as they join the teams to make sure they hit the ground running. That's the totem pole. That's what we all aim for. And if you're here, you're looking for a partner who can help you sustain that in long term while continuously trying to reduce your ongoing costs that are spent solely towards accessibility. And it is, believe me, it is possible. So the key consideration on which partner to work with really depends on what is your long-term goal. If the goal is to get to the expert level, starting from a beginner level, pick a partner who has some sort of a proven record of guiding organizations through the various maturity levels that we just talked about. No organization really starts at the expert level. They build the expertise, and you need a partner who can help you through those stages, continuously adapting to your needs. Time for another poll. We're about to start talking about the length of engagement. What do you think is the length of a typical engagement with your accessibility partner? Is that less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 months to a year, or multi-year? And as I'm asking this question, don't think about just one engagement, think about overall engagement with the partners. You should have seen a panel pop up in case you haven't seen it yet.
Yep, looks like 70% of people have voted, so I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So it looks like, go ahead, Sachin.
So it looks like less than 2% people think about the typical engagement being about less than 3 months, 3 to 6 months, about 13% people, 6 months to a year, 21%, and multi-year is 65%, overwhelming success on multi-year engagements, which is great. Thank you so much for responding to the poll. And our findings are aligned to yours. When we look at length of engagements, it of course depends on the scope of work we're doing for you or any vendor is doing for you. When we talk about a single application assessment, typically organizations start here, right? They could last anywhere between 1 to 3 months. It has the least long-term impact, but is most suited for beginners because you need to start somewhere, and it's a good place to start with. The program or portfolio assessment lasts about 3 to 6 months. That's where you're looking to find all the issues across your application. It has medium impact because now you'll end up with a comprehensive list of everything that's wrong on your site. But take it with a grain of salt because having that sort of list, if your development team does not have capability or capacity to address all those issues within a very short time frame, that list gets stale very fast. However, it's very appropriate for organizations which are at the rookie level of maturity. As I said earlier, you're looking for the workhorses, right? You need to have all the information available so that you can make some informed decisions. So great place to be at. Could take some of your partners or your organizations 3 to 6 months to get through all the assessments. The remediation support projects, that's where you're really working with a vendor to help your development team. Those can last from somewhere between 3 months to a year. And that's accounting for the fact that your vendor partner is working with your developer in your development life cycle. So it can be medium to high impact depending on how many issues your team is fixing. This is also the kind of project where your partner will be helping your developers gain that accessibility knowledge, really make sure everything going forward will be accessible. Um, this is where you start pushing yourself from rookie to intermediate level of maturity. And then finally, the program office setup. It can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years, but has the highest impact. This is where you're starting to go from intermediate to expert level of maturity. This is where you're setting yourself up for long-term success. And for a small organization which doesn't have multiple different processes, it can get done within a year. Most large organizations have multiple business units, multiple teams. Each team could have a different process. That's where it could take you 3 years and sometimes even larger than that to make sure accessibility is ingrained in your processes. Your office is as effective as it can be. So those are typical engagements. And as you're picking an accessibility partner, make sure someone who is able to support you through those needs is available for you. Moving on to what I call the essential ingredients for a successful recipe. These are the attributes that you want to look for in any partner when you're talking about accessibility, irrespective of your size, your scale. You need to make sure these attributes are available for everyone. First of all, documented testing methodology. We briefly touched upon the point where WCAG criteria are not necessarily black or white. There is interpretation involved. And a lot of times the issue we hear is two different test team members gave two different answers for the same issue. As a developer, nothing is more frustrating than that. So make sure you're working with a partner who has a documented testing methodology so that when you get the results on the same thing two different times, you're not getting two different answers. Ability to meet your needs as you grow or as you change your maturity level on the accessibility maturity model. Make sure you work with a vendor who can support you through those stages. The response time, very critical, especially when you are dealing with the development teams. When a developer is stuck and they're looking for a response on how to fix an accessibility issue, they can't wait for 2 days to get an answer from your partner. That's lost time, and that's a lot of context switching for your development group. So make sure you're working with a partner who can support you through that quick response time frame. Make sure you're working with someone who can plan for those, engage for those needs of different teams. So response time is critical when meeting the needs of your development teams and any other team for that matter. Proven testing tools. Accessibility testing is a combination of automated and manual testing to be most efficient. When you're working with a vendor, you need to be 100% aware of what tools are being used by your partner so that they're in alignment with the tools that your own team is using. If you're using different tools, you can have different results coming up from those testing scenarios, which is again frustrating and waste of time and money. And the tools that you're using should have some sort of proven testing methodology. Make sure the number of false positives are minimal, false negatives are minimal, or at the very least, you have some good amount of information on what is possibly an issue that will need review from your different teams. Integration with your processes. If you're setting up yourself up for long-term success, you need to ensure accessibility is ingrained in your processes. But at the same time, if you're putting the burden of changing processes on your team, you don't get a lot of success because team has to learn accessibility, but at the same time learn new process. That's just not a recipe for success. So make sure you have a vendor who has information, knowledge on how different processes work, and they can integrate into your own process rather than enforcing vendor's process on your existing teams. Going back to waterfall is not going to be successful for anyone today when everyone is working on an agile environment. Finally, participation in W3C working groups. The WCAG criteria itself is changing very rapidly. We just had the announcement of 2.1 last year, and now we're already working on the silver guidelines. So having a partner who knows what's going on within the W3C working groups does set you up for long-term success. It does make sure that you have information as it's getting cooked up, as it's getting decided in these working forums. So here are some of the essentials that you need to ensure that your partner can give you good support on. With that, we're open for questions.
Thanks, Sachin. I have a question here. So we talked about accessibility and maturity, but while people are looking for a vendor, what are some quick projects or low-hanging fruit they could possibly tackle before reaching out to an accessibility partner?
Can you repeat that question, Laura, please?
So we talked about a lot about like the different types of engagements and accessibility and maturity, but I wanted to kind of discuss what are some low-hanging fruit or quick things that people could do before they reach out to an accessibility partner.
Absolutely. The biggest battle that anyone has to fight when starting on the accessibility journey is building the cadence within the group on going towards accessibility or accessibility enabled systems. So first step that we always recommend is get some sort of empathy lab kind of training, so that the teams that are going to work on these accessibility projects, they know who will be the user group they're targeting. They can empathize with their experiences. They can understand what they're trying to address. At the end of the day, it's very important to have a long-term goal that the teams can see succeeding towards. Once you have that in place, the starting point is always, let's find out what's wrong with the site. And you have some free tools available today, available in the market. Um, I'm working for DQ. I'm going to start talking about Axe, but I'll try to keep it to minimum. Go download Axe or go download other extensions that are available to start off finding out what's wrong or what's missing from an accessibility standpoint. That's a great starting point.
Great. And another question here from Jamie. When might a company move from a vendor to an in-house team?
Going back to the accessibility maturity model, you need to ensure you have the appropriate support systems in place. You need to have expertise available in each of the teams that are impacted by accessibility needs. So at a minimum, you need to have an accessibility coordinator or in charge in place who will guide the overall effort within the organization, who will guide the consistency within the group to make sure everyone is following the same guidelines. Establish a policy, make sure the team members are trained, especially the team members on QA and development team. Those are the two teams that you need to start with, but that's just plugging the hole. If you start moving towards UX, that's where you're shifting left and you're reducing your overall accessibility costs. So have them trained. Once the teams are trained and are ready to go, that's when you can start moving away from a vendor and start ensuring accessibility in place. I cannot talk any less about products. Make sure you have products embedded in the processes so that you're controlling the costs as well.
Great, thanks, Sachin. Follow-up question from Natalie about having an accessibility partner that has the right expertise. When you say engagement or involvement in WCAG groups, what exactly does that mean? Should people just be asking their partners, how many people are you involved? Do you have involved with WCAG decision-making teams or the W3C?
So the way these W3C working groups work is they have different teams who are addressing different parts of the WCAG requirements. As you're picking a vendor, it's a fair question to ask about vendors' involvement in these working groups. You can ask them about how the participation is in place, what kind of recommendations have the teams suggested. You need to know as a customer who you're working with and what are their levels of participation. Having that information will always arm you to make an informed decision.
Great. Um, and then another question here is, do you have any advice for people who are looking to switch accessibility partners to a new partner?
Um, yes, pick the queue. But jokes apart, if you're planning to switch from an accessibility partner to a different one, chances are very high that you know what was not working with your current vendor. So having that information is actually to your benefit. Make sure as you interview different partners, as you start working with different partners, you're looking at for those specific attributes. Um, the overall advice still remains the same. You need to pick a partner who will fit your needs, who will suit your needs. Uh, but if you know what was the issue with the current vendor, you can work with the potential new vendors to address those upfront and even look for any signs of those coming up as you're working or as you're going through the procurement process to select the vendor.
Great, thank you. And Sam is asking here, are there any established accessibility maturity models like the SEI CMM there is for software?
I have not seen any. If you know of any, I would like to have that information available and you can tell us about that. Every organization that I work with has some sort of model of their own. There is no standardized um, agency like SEI which creates a model like this. So each organization will have their own model for this.
Great, thank you. Another question here from Ren. What has been your experience with organizations and teams reviewing internal systems for accessibility? Or do you have any suggestions on accessible prototyping systems?
Accessible prototyping systems. Maybe we'll need to have some more clarity on that specific question there. In terms of accessibility for internal systems, we won't treat any internal facing system any different than a website which is public facing, purely because of parity, purely because of there should not be any difference for a system which is for your own internal employees versus for public. So same requirements apply. The only difference is the exposure to legal risk may be considered to be a little low, but I'm not a lawyer on that, so don't quote me on that for anything. I'm just talking about overall exposure to number of people looking at your site. Could give a false or any sort of illusion of low risk, but from our perspective, the same requirements apply.
Great, thanks, Sachin. So it looks like we're out of time. Time flew by. I want to thank Sachin again for his great presentation. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll be sure to answer those via email, and another friendly reminder that this is recorded. So we'll be sending out the recording and the slides in an email later this week. So thanks so much for everybody hopping on. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you, everyone.